Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for the new moon in Taurus, which is happening on May 15th at 6:48 a.m. Central Standard Time. I make a big point of putting the time of these new and full moons in my time zone because whenever I see them on the ephemeris for astro.com, the default is Eastern Standard Time, which is New York, the East Coast, things like that. And no, I'm representing the Midwest. If you're from countries outside of America, you're on your own. And I'm kind of joking because you guys are going to be 6 hours ahead in Europe, approximately, I think. And then people in Australia, will it even be on Tuesday? Maybe it's going to be on the 16th of May. I'm not sure. I think you're 16 hours ahead, so you're going to have to do the math on that. It might be actually right after midnight on the 16th. But in that general vicinity, let's just put it. So I was thinking about this new moon earlier in the day, and I was thinking about the fact that Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it's the start of the astrological new year. But when you really think about it, Aries is an initiator, and it gives you that burning desire. Aries is a fire sign, so you have these, passionate impulses, and Aries is a cardinal sign. So it's all about taking action. But you need some sort of soil in order to plant seeds of intention that will eventually manifest as your crops or your creations. And what better place to plant seeds of intention than in Taurus soil? Taurus is a fixed earth sign. Earth is soil. The fixed modality means that it's consistent. It means that it's not erratic. It's not going to sprout one day and then stagnate the next. It's going to maybe very slowly start to produce growth. Okay, so I feel like if we're talking about trying to bring things into manifestation, that this new moon is really where it's at. Thinking back to Aries and the new moon there, the same day that Mercury went direct, it was still in a state of flux. And now we have that stability that we are looking for. So I have my book here by Jane Spiller called Moon Astrology, using new moon power days to change and revitalize your life. And she has things to wish for all of the new moons. And I'm going to just read off some of her ideas when it comes to Taurus. So, and by the way, these are not just things that are positive that connect to Taurus, also the challenging things. So, some ideas for the positive things that are connected to Taurus: solid foundations, just what I was kind of hinting at there. Persistence, progressing step by step. Thoroughness, perseverance. Did I say I always say like perseverance instead of perseverance. Simple physical pleasures, rapport with nature, satisfaction, contentment, patience, dependability, trustworthiness, steadfastness. Sensuality, physical comfort, aromas, tastes. Money, material comforts, ownership, possessions. These are all kind of buzzwords or keywords of the second house that Taurus rules. Now, a person can say, well, duh, everybody wants money. Everybody wants to experience pleasure. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There are many people who do not feel that they are deserving of money, adequate money. There are many people who feel that they are not deserving of pleasure, or that somehow pleasure is dangerous. So we have to really look at these attitudes that we may hold that we're not consciously aware of, because they do exist. Trust me, and especially if you're on the spiritual path, these topics are absolutely fraught with all kinds of negativity attached to them when it comes to people who are, trying to kind of like transcend mundane consciousness. Many people who consider themselves spiritual think that money is the root of all evil. And I get it. I understand why people think like that, because we can see many examples of people committing crimes, sometimes heinous crimes due to greed, and to thinking that if they have more money, they're going to automatically be happy, even if they have to do something unspeakable in order to get there. So we have this, so-called proof, but it doesn't tell the whole picture. And it's something that maybe I should cover in a separate video, but I don't want to, deviate too much from this particular reading. You can definitely look up different, whatever you want to call them, spiritual teachers or people in this field, and find out how to approach money and the thoughts of it, especially if you are the one that is having to charge for things, because it is something that can feel very uncomfortable if you have had a lifetime of indoctrination, whether it was conscious indoctrination or just done unconsciously by people around you on this particular topic, but also, of course, of pleasure, because speaking of indoctrination, the religious institutions tend to give us these negative messages too. And it's ironic when it comes to money, because, that's where that scripture gets twisted about money being the root of all evil. But guess who has the collection played out? It's not evil when they ask for the money, but it's evil if you want money. So we have to really think about these things critically in order to make our own decisions about what is best for us and what we are deserving of. The second house that Taurus rules is about not only the money that you earn, but also your possessions. And it goes both ways. Taurus in the shadow side of things can be covetous, can be greedy, can be like a shopaholic, somebody who maybe is even like a hoarder and feels the need to like collect material items, thinking that they need them when they really don't. And obviously this is connected somewhere within their psyche to a feeling of lack. I always talk about that Five of Pentacles in the Tarot that is connected to Mercury and Taurus, and the thought patterns that connect with lack consciousness. And so that fear-based thinking can cause some people to be overly concerned with having material items. And they can, end up having their lives overstuffed. And that could even be with food, people eating too much because they fear famine, feast or famine, as the saying goes. But being a glutton because in their mind, there might be this time when they won't be able to eat. And it's almost like it's not a conscious thought, but it's what compels certain people to do that. And maybe they experienced it at some point, and they think to themselves, I never want to feel like that again. But we have to have faith that we can have what we need. But the key word there is need. Desires never end. It's funny because I don't know if the Buddha was a Taurus. I know that his one of the death days that they associate with Taurus, is it death or enlightenment or both, is May 8th. So, but I thought that he was a Taurus, and he talked about the middle path because he was born wealthy. And he saw that some people lived a life of indulgence and some lived a life of denial of basic needs, and he wanted to live the middle way, the middle path. And so sometimes these extremes in Taurus need to be integrated so that people can have a balanced view of materiality, okay, which involves the money that we make to sustain ourselves. And not only to sustain ourselves, do we have the right to have money that goes beyond that, so that we can have pleasure, so that we can have things that we do that are fun? Is it okay to have fun? Are we deserving of having fun, or do we just have to work? And then also just that sense of when is enough, and kind of bringing it into balance. Now, let me just talk about a couple of things too. I kind of lost my place here because I had the book open to all of these keywords, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things that they talk about working on that involve kind of the challenging aspects of Taurus. And I've touched upon maybe that greed, but also in terms of, can you tell I'm biding my time here? Boundaries. And I think that I don't know exactly why she's saying that. I'm assuming because she's thinking in terms of self-esteem, part of that second house, and affirming your own needs. But I think also because Taurus is ruled by Venus, like Libra is, that there is a tendency towards wanting to please one's partner and not having, or just in general, wanting to please other people, sometimes at your own expense. Another thing is stubbornness. We know that Taurus is famous or infamous for being stubborn. I have Taurus rising. Enough said. I mean, I have the ability now to look at myself and see when I'm doing this, when I'm digging in my heels. And I just shake my head, but whatever. I mean, that's something that until a Taurus person really wants to change, it's not that easy for them because they get very set in their ways. And that's a form of stubbornness too. Attachment. And this is, when I'm talking about greed, it really is about attachment and feeling like I need this. I'm attached to having new clothes once a month. I'm attached to having, this fancy dinner that really is not going to add to my health, or it's not going to make me feel good after I have it, but I'm attached to it. And sometimes the attachment is really about something else. It could be about a memory that the person feels that, kind of like is connecting this experience to, that, was a positive one, or it just may symbolize something to them. If you just want to always eat dinner at a fancy restaurant, but the food doesn't make you feel good, you may feel like, I am successful, I am worthy because I'm eating at this high status restaurant. And it has nothing to do with making you feel good inside. And I think it's wonderful to treat yourself to good things, but they have to have value ultimately. And sometimes there's an attachment to things based upon more egoic reasons, not truly pleasurable things. Resistance to change, and I just kind of talked about that with stubbornness. Holding dogmatic opinions. Nah, I'd never do that. Not in a million years. Stagnation. I think that's the same as resistance to change. Possessiveness. I think that is a huge one for Taurus people, is not to treat people in your life as objects that you control. I think that's one of the most challenging things about the sign of Taurus that has to be really looked at. You have to sit with it. You have to see where it's coming from, and you have to dissolve it if you have those tendencies, because it will wreak havoc on your relationships. And it doesn't have to be just romantic relationships. You can be possessive of your friends. You can be possessive of family members. And there has to be that kind of understanding of how injurious it is. Okay, so let's look at some of the aspects that are being formed at this time. Obviously, whenever there's a new moon, the sun and moon are in an exact conjunction. So they are in alignment with one another. And this means an integration or a consolidation of the aspects of the outer ego and power in the world and the inner, the emotional nature, the spiritual, intuitive nature. They're at one. So this is another reason why it's so great for manifestation and for taking action, because your inside and your outside impulses are in alignment. And this is a really wonderful time in addition to that, because Mars is in Capricorn, a fellow earth sign, and it's actually within orb. It's at 29 degrees to the sun and moon's 24 degrees. And according to my aspects table, it's considered a conjunction at 5-degree orb. So, because sometimes, there are differing opinions on what are appropriate orbs for the different aspects, but with, I've seen with moon and other planet aspects that the orb is very tight, very small, and so I'm kind of surprised to see that with 5 degrees. But I'm going along with this. And Capricorn, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and so this is like the person who is a great strategist. You can really create the blueprint for the life you want to lead after this time period, May 15th. So, you have like a few days when the new moon is at its most powerful. But up until the next full moon, which is happening at the end of May at 8 degrees of Sagittarius, the unveiling, or whatever you want to call it, of different practices that support your life journey are definitely indicated. Mercury is out of its shadow, and all systems are go. So it's interesting because Venus is going to be in Gemini, and it's very flirtatious. And with all this sensual energy of Taurus, there's this sense of like wanting to be playful, wanting to be social, and wanting variety, wanting to like just maybe you want to see how desirable you are by flirting with other people. And if people really understood what flirtation meant, they wouldn't have this heavy-handed approach to it, because it's totally different to be flirtatious and to be unfaithful. And if a Taurus person sees their partner flirting with someone and they have this black or white perception of it, they can just totally lose it because it just threatens them so much. Whereas somebody else would say, you know, they're just having fun, but they're going to come home with me. And so I'm putting it out there like that because I really feel like the more that we can see other people as independent agents that happen to be with us, and we can appreciate that they're with us, but we can have this kind of freedom first approach is what I would call it, where we trust them enough to know that they are going to be faithful to us and that we're not like micromanaging them. I think the better off we will be. And I say that because because thinking of that Taurus tendency to want to have somebody as, possess somebody, body, mind, and soul. That's the only way I can think of it. And how that negatively impacts relationships in various ways. Some people who don't understand might feel flattered, might feel that it means that the Taurus person loves them. But really, it is very stifling, and it ultimately will not protect the Taurus person from infidelity. The only thing that protects you from infidelity is believing that you are worthy of somebody being faithful to you. If you don't trust your partner, then you might as well not even be in that relationship. But it might not be the partner's fault. Sometimes people have trust issues. Then maybe they need to work on themselves before they get into a relationship. But I say this because I think this is a big problem with a lot of signs. But now that we're talking about Taurus, that's why I'm bringing it up here. And with Venus and Gemini, we may be seeing a lot of that kind of flirtatious behavior. Let me see if I see anything else. Well, it's interesting. There's a conjunction between Mars and Pluto. So that can be very sexy, but can be very intense. And people who are chomping at the bit to get something off the ground are going to be just one-pointed. They're going to be obsessed with it, and they may be working nonstop at whatever it is that they're trying to launch. Well, one thing that I wanted to say, we know that Uranus is going into Taurus on that same day as the new moon in Taurus. So there is change in the air. And, Uranus is a 7-year transit, so it's nothing to be taken lightly. It's definitely, the winds are changing direction. And in Taurus, Uranus is strange bedfellows because it is erratic, and Taurus is so kind of like stuck on in its own groove. So it is going to shake up Taurians. But I think it's going to shake them up in a good way. It's going to challenge Taurians to stop being so stick in the mud and, stagnant. It's going to force change on Taurians and all fixed signs to one degree or the other. And that's a good thing. Being a change agent is a good thing for these signs because they have a tendency to get in ruts. So the other fixed signs are Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, Scorpio, and Leo. So if you have some prominent planets in any of those signs, you can expect that you will have some sort of, I don't know, it'll breathe some fresh air into your life in that area. Okay, that's what I have for you guys. So I hope that you enjoy this very practical and great foundational time of the new moon in Taurus. Take care. Bye.